Hey guys, and welcome to another season of the Ask People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and in this season, we uncover the remarkable power of genuine compassion and insightful vision. This season, we're here to show the world that we, as individuals, are the brand, regardless of misconceptions. Join us as we go deep into the inspiring journeys of our guests, each one a testament to the impact and influence of kindness and creativity. Don't just take my word for it. Hear their stories, feel their passion, and discover the transformative potential within us all. So stay tuned as we shine a light on the truths that connects us and inspires change. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Ask People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I have the lovely Natalie here with me, who is a growth strategist for companies and a massive entrepreneur, a humble one as well, actually. She was one of the first people to ask me how I am and how my day is going, and to me that is valuable. So Natalie, I want to thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Ask People podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. And, I always believe before you do anything, have a, recording, do a TV show with someone, basically, right? I think it's really good to understand who that person is. And I listened to one of your episodes and I thought, she is really interesting. And I was right. As soon as I asked you that question, you and I started getting into a dialogue about what it takes to be in a relationship. So it worked out.
Definitely. So my first question that I love to ask guests who come on the show, Natalie, could you tell me about yourself, where you grew up, and how that influenced you to be the person who you are today?
Yeah, man, that's a really powerful story. How did you grow up? And I'm going to answer it very truthfully because I think that that's the beauty in our stories is when you can give the good with the bad, right? So I am from Houston, Texas originally. I always like to say I went to the same high school as Beyonce. That's kind of a cool thing to be able to actually articulate. But I did. I went to a performing arts high school in downtown Houston. And, before that, I was at a small parochial Catholic school. I wanted to be an actress from the time I was 5. I got into this performing arts high school that auditions thousands of kids every year. Maybe like 2,000 kids audition, 150 get in. And it was a public charter, performing arts school, magnet school, not charter. So I get into this high school and I'm literally going to school in a community, in a place where there are no rules except to be completely into and invested in your art.
Yes.
I'm in this high school where there's no bells because bells push you around and tell you what to do. I'm learning about Shakespeare. There's no sports. There's art all over the walls. You can wear whatever you want.
I like that.
If you feel like leaving class to get a coffee down the street and you want to come back to class, the teacher's like, sure, go ahead. It was a very liberal arts experience that I am so grateful and humbled that I ever got to have. Yoga was my first period of class. Okay. Totally different than what my friends experienced after we left our, small private Catholic school. And the reason it shaped me is because when you go to a performing arts public high school where people are so invested in their art and love to do what they do, there's not cliques, there's not drama, there's no gossip, there's hugs that are all around. It's just this really diverse, place. You're in this beautiful aquarium where all these different fishes are, and you're all just collectively creating this ecosystem. And I got that opportunity to go there because I loved musical theater and I auditioned and got in. And I just remember those 4 years were so intentional for shaping who I am. My parents, divorced like many people at a young age. Yeah. My dad was, working at a corporate company and traveling the country. My mother, she was really struggling as a single mom. I'm going to be really honest about that. And it was very tough. Growing up with her, very difficult for her to keep the lights on. We would go to the grocery store and, have to put all of our groceries back because the card declined. Marrying that with my father, who was a stable figure, but, still trying to figure out how to be in my life while he was building a company. So my childhood was, right, tumultuous, very tumultuous. I'll never forget when my mother got arrested in front of me for writing a hot check at a grocery store. And my grandmother from Venezuela was in town, and, I was headed to ballet class, and my mom is literally getting arrested in front of me. I mean, you don't forget that when you're, 12 years old, right? And I share that. I don't really talk about this often because I had such a tumultuous childhood. To go to this performing arts high school that just shaped me and uniquely brought me down to earth and stabilized me, and people were so loving, and everybody of different genders, different races, different home backgrounds were all equaled out into, let's just come here and be part of this performing arts ecosystem, was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And I got recruited there, kind of my stories, I got recruited there by a small liberal arts school in Lincoln, Nebraska called Nebraska Wesleyan University. I auditioned for Nebraska Wesleyan. They gave me a full scholarship for musical theater to their BFA program. And that would have never happened had I not been at a performing arts high school that colleges and universities came down and wanted to find talent from. So that's what got me to Nebraska. And then, of course, the rest is kind of history. My career here, I went from musical theater to being a TV news anchor and reporter in Nebraska for 4 years, and then moving into the marketing agency industry and starting my own agency 8 years ago. But it all started with that high school experience and being able to have something different that very few people get.
See, this is what I love about stories, when they come out truthfully and from the heart, because my next question resonates and it goes deeper into who you are as a person. So my next question for you is, can you now define yourself as a person? But also, who do you see when you look in the mirror? But on the flip side of that, Natalie, has there ever been a time where you have looked in the mirror and not recognized the person staring back at you? How did you manage to go from a vision that you might not have liked to see to becoming a person that you felt inside you had purpose?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that very truthfully. When I was 16, 17, 18, 19, even in my early 20s, I really struggled with this gap that I felt. My parents, splitting up, me having a lot of different feelings about that, feeling like I was kind of caught in between two worlds with my father and my mom. I had a very tumultuous childhood. So, of course, you've got a trauma wound there, and everyone has trauma. I'm not, the only person to have trauma. When I was looking in the mirror, I saw this girl who wasn't fit enough, wasn't pretty enough, wasn't attractive enough, wasn't loved. And, that's kind of where I was in early college. And the way that I filled the gap, of course, was, trying to go get into relationships and seek attention from people that maybe weren't the best for me, especially men, right? And we've all done that. I think as women, we don't talk about it a lot, but it's a huge piece of what happens when you've got these wounds from childhood. So when I looked in the mirror when I was like 19, 20, 21, the person I saw back was slumping. I remember in theater class, the professor, Dr. Eric, was like, I want you to just open up and take yourself into a position of strength. Like, he's like, you were physically slumping. And it was because I just wasn't confident. I wasn't confident in myself. I wasn't confident in my body. I didn't feel like I could, really articulate who I was to the world. And I felt like I was dealing with this, constant thought in my head of like, will people like me all the time? What really shifted that, and I'm going to be really frank here because I think that a lot of people need to hear this. What shifted that and changed my entire life for the next decade and made it possible for me to go be a TV news anchor, to go get a sales job where I was making six figures. And not that it's all about making money, but a high commission sales job, right? Yeah. What shifted that was my discipline in wellness and self-care. My sophomore year of college, walked into the YMCA. I took one or two classes there, and I realized this is it. Like, this is it. Like, I was taking a kickboxing class, and I realized how good I felt afterwards. Yep. For the last, 15 years of my life, since I was 17, I'm 33 now. I've been heavily involved in group fitness. I take classes. I go and, kick my own ass at the gym. When I started doing that consistently, I mean, like, sophomore year of college, I got a car. I was, going to the YMCA 3 to 4 classes a week. Then, my junior year, I found another gym and I was going to cycling class and lifting weights with my friends. That was the number one thing that shifted my perception of who I could be. And the reason why that is because when you stick with something and you are super disciplined, and I'm not talking about just something you're passionate about like musical theater, I'm talking about something that is hard, fitness. When you stick with it and you keep doing it over and over again, your confidence builds to the nth degree that if I can do that, I can do anything.
Yep.
And so that's what flipped the person looking back at me, because by the time I graduated college and, I was working on the news, I could look in the mirror and go, you can lift weights, you can squat, you're strong mentally, you can do hard things. So you want to surround yourself with people, relationships, and experiences that mirror that.
See, this is what I love. And another question I do have for you as well is, how did you get from going from and being a creative? Because you are, for me, I feel like you're a natural creative person. But then you
I
went
love
from being
creativity.
and creativity. What I always tell people is creativity is not just in the arts. That's something that I like to articulate and let people know very often. What I try to break is the boundaries of people thinking that it's just in music or it's just in being an artist, as very untrue. Every single day you could be a surgeon, you can be a therapist, you can be literally anything, and creativity comes out somewhere, because in our minds most of the time we have to be spontaneous in what we do and how we do it in order to get the results that we need. So it's about opening your mind and letting yourself understand that you can push your own boundaries. And in life, we must learn to do that. That gives us self-worth, understanding. But most of all, the one thing that we fight with in our lives is being kind to ourselves. And that's why we end up ruining ourselves and having even more trauma, because we are not kind to ourselves. And it's so, so important.
Yeah, that hits really home for me, because when you're not kind to yourself and when you're not loving to yourself with the self-talk, like I have a really strong inner monologue that tells me just one more email, or just get through it
Same.
one task at a time,
Same.
or you know what, Nat, that's okay. That's okay. Just do what you can. If you don't have that, life can be hard because everybody else is coming at you, and you've got to be able to calm yourself up here and remember what's important.
How did you take yourself, Natalie, from being a creative person to deciding you're going to be a growth strategist for companies? But also, I know that you're going to tell me something about learning something within yourself and doing that. But what made you turn? What made you decide that this is what I want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. It's a hard one because my evolution into, being in broadcast, which is a very creative field,
Yeah.
storytelling, right? I got started to get sick. I was working these 12 p.m., 3 a.m. to 12 p.m. shifts. So we're talking about, I was literally up at the middle of the night, 1:30 in the morning, getting ready, doing the morning news, and I was starting to get really sick. And I realized that life is about enjoyment just as much as it is about making money and having status. I mean, life is more about how can you enjoy the simple moments, the time with your family, the time with your friends. When I was a TV news anchor and reporter, even though I love that job, I still would do it today in some capacity. I was running from myself. I was running from going home and having to really deal with my mother and some of the trauma that I dealt with as a kid. I was running from the fact that I felt like maybe people didn't always like me growing up, or people didn't always love me. And that just comes from, that's me. That's not the truth. So when I was a TV news anchor and reporter, I would work all the holidays. I would work overtime. I would never go home. I was running from really dealing with what was going on with me, and from really having a compassionate understanding of how to just build relationships, because I had that childhood trauma of feeling like I was abandoned. And when you realize your trauma, you can actually start to move through it and start to unblock it. And for me, that's a really important detail, because once I got into a relationship with somebody I really cared about, and I got into this job where I was getting sick and not able to spend time with family and friends, I realized at the end of my tenure as a local news reporter and anchor, the only thing that matters in this world, the only reason we work, the only reason we try to make money, the only reason we try to achieve status is to achieve freedom, to achieve the moment, like enjoying the moments with our loved ones. So I got to a point in my career where I wanted that. That was like, okay, How do we take all the creativity, all the things that you know you can do, and bottle it up into more entrepreneurship and help companies grow by telling their stories? And I actually only interviewed for one job out of local news. I had a friend of a friend tell me, this comes back to having a very impactful network that cares about you. I had a friend tell me, you got to go to this company, you got to work there. They would love to hire you. They are looking for somebody who can do sales. You have a great personality, and you don't need to be a salesperson. You just need to be a storyteller. So I went
Exactly.
into this job, right? Like they're like, you don't, and that's the truth. You don't ever need to sell someone if you know how to tell your story.
Yeah.
Your story will sell it for you.
Yes,
So I
exactly.
did that. I quit the local news job. I went and got into this agency that was just starting digital marketing in it was 2017. And so I just went and started to work there, and they were just starting to sell social media management and content creation for people. And I just went to all of the businesses in the area and told them a story about what's happening. Like, look, I came from broadcast. I know you've been running ads on the news, but now there's a new form of marketing where you can track people on your phones,
Yes.
and you can see exactly how those people are optimizing and running and engaging with your ads, and you can run campaigns. So I did that for 2 years, and really, like, I still felt I was a creative, because even though I was an entrepreneur and doing sales and growth strategy for companies, I mean, at the end of the day, I felt that I was still creatively telling them, this is how to, let me take your story and I'll help you repackage it so you can continue to sell it, because I know what you're capable of. And then I went from there to becoming really an official entrepreneur. I mean, sales is entrepreneurial. And I would say that my entrepreneurial journey started in sales. But once I went to Oh Hello, decided to start Oh Hello, that's when I really said, you know what, I'm going to take the plunge and I'm going to go all in on building a business, which is a whole other level of, you got to be kind to yourself, because it's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Let's talk about Oh Hello a bit more. The agency itself. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about your strategies, how you built it,
Yeah.
and your team. One of the most important things in your company is your team and how you treat your team. I've learned that in life. Believe me, that's one of the best things that you can do. So talk to me about the structure of what you do and why you decided to do it.
Yeah, so the structure of what we do, high level overview on what it is that Oh Hello does. I started this agency with two guys who are still friends of mine today. One of them is actually still a very good friend. We had done $130,000 in our first year of sales,
I
and
like that.
they were a bit older than me, and they're like, we need healthcare. And I was like, no worries, I can still live off a credit card and ramen, so I'll see you later. Peace out. I'm good. I mean, that's the truth. Like,
Yeah.
I had not figured out how to scale and run a business, but I had figured out how to sell what we did. And what
Yeah.
Oh Hello does, and why we started it, is it's a brand innovation lab. That's what we started it as. Today, it's a full scale creative agency. But a brand innovation lab, the reason we would use those names is because our entire goal of working with clients was, we create a proprietary brand framework to help them build a really amazing, unique brand.
Yes.
And not just a brand that is a logo, a brand that had strategy back. So 4 phases in our framework: discovery, brand voice and tone, the messaging, which is the
That's
stories you
dope.
tell, and then
Yes.
the implementation of customer experience. We would
Exactly
actually
that.
map out, what is your customer experience, and digitally and in person, how does your brand extend and truly create an emotional experience. Emotional experiences, that is why Lululemon is opening up a fitness studio, because even though they're a retailer, they want people to experience the brand. That is why Nike has a Michael Jordan Hall of Fame shoe wall in their store, and not just shoes, right? That is why you're going to see more brands like Patagonia or Dior doing things like hotels or retreats. I mean, Gucci, they just opened up the Gucci Cafe. They're not doing a cafe because you're there and they want you to just have a cup of coffee. They're doing a cafe because they know that if they can delight you in a brand experience that feels like Gucci,
Yep.
you will continue to spend money with them. I just went to Restoration Hardware's brunch spot recently on my bachelorette. Same exact process. So there is an audience who there's not an audience, but I would say there are businesses that understand how important this is. We wanted to help them, and that's what we did for the first couple of years of the firm before we expanded into other areas of service. All of our other services, though, connect to the idea, even today, brand matters. And we
Yes.
are going to help you create a brand and a brand experience that sticks out in your market and disrupts. And when I say I'm a growth strategist, I really, I wouldn't even just say I'm a growth strategist. I mean, I use that title so much. I'm a business strategist because when my business comes to me and says my marketing isn't working, I don't just ask them what's your website look like, or how many ads are you running. I ask them, what is it that you are doing on a day-to-day basis to build relationships with your audience emotionally? What are you doing? And if they tell me they're not doing events, they're not doing email sequences, they're not nurturing their customer through great, valuable social content, if they're not changing the lives of their customers for the better, in today's day and age, you're likely not going to be successful in marketing. So that's really what Oh Hello is all about. We have some phenomenal people. I know you asked me about how we treat our team. We've had a great time building the culture there of excellence, of people who are just really passionate and empowered about building the best brand for our clients. I know some of my colleagues like David Clark, who leads our PR and media. Yeah, he's great. Our creative director, Daria, has been with us for 4 years. Our previous creative director, who actually trained her and brought her into the firm, unfortunately passed away in an accident. So that was something that I had to overcome as just an entrepreneur. Like, what do you do when you lose like your number 2 person at the firm? That was horrific and sad. Julian Knight, amazing guy, did our website, did our brand relaunch, amazing human. He was with me for a couple of years, and I can tell you that he was one of the people that was really always advocating to me as a CEO. Before we were acquired, he would come to me and he would do these culture surveys and be like, Natalie, we've got to change this, we've got to shift this. And he was really great at that. So today, that's kind of an inspiration for me as we look ahead. We've been acquired by an Australian agency, and I'm stepping into a new role as head of growth. I'm taking some of the inspiration of what Australia is teaching me about culture, and also what he instilled in me as the leader of our firm. Even though I was the CEO, I would say he was the relational leader to pretty much everybody, taking those ideas and concepts that he taught me about culture and continuing to see how we can excel in them. So.
See, this is what I love. The education like this, you just don't get this anywhere. And the truth of having a passion. No, it's true. And the truth of having a passion to say what you say with so much love and empathy, but you say it because you believe in it. I always listen to the way people talk, and I always listen the passion within their voice while they're talking about something, and their team. So a team, it's like you have a grounded team, and we all have our ups and downs in companies. Believe me, we do.
Oh, of course.
Of but course. What
it's
makes us goes, exactly? But what makes us stronger is how we deal with it as a team. That's what makes us stronger, and we boost on. One of the questions that I asked even before my guests come on the show is, what is a common misconception about your field that you would like to clear up?
About our field? Oh, man. There's so many, my friend.
I remember what you wrote here.
Listen, I think a lot of people think that if you build a brand, you're just going to, if you invest in building a brand and building marketing overnight, you're going to see the success. And that's just not true. Building a brand is something that you will see return on investment from, but it takes years of consistency, which is why so few companies do it. And you notice that a lot of these big brands that we refer to, like Patagonia and Nike, Outdoor Voices, Dior, Gucci, right? I mean, all Stanley, the Stanley company, the company that makes the water bottles. I mean, hugely successful. But why? The question is why? Because the people leading those firms, those companies, they understand that they have to be wildly obsessed about building a fanatical brand that people will be loyal to.
Yes.
And a lot 100%. Of founders don't understand this, and they don't know what it looks like, and they don't know how to invest in this. And you can invest in it in a variety of different ways, but you've got to be fanatical about it. You've got to be obsessed with it. In today's AI-driven world, a brand that feels human, a brand that feels intelligent, a brand that feels like it's putting its values out front and center and leading with those values, those are the brands that are going to succeed, because now we're going into an increasingly commoditized market where anyone can use AI to get up a brand tomorrow. Do you know what I'm saying? Anyone could use AI to get a brand up. You could just, AI a logo, put some content together, but not anyone can build a brand that people will be fanatical about, which is why I think the biggest misconception we have is that anyone can do branding and marketing, and that is just not the truth. there is an expertise, there is a level of artistry with it, and then you're not going to see ROI quickly, and you need to get used to that.
See, this is what I like about branding. It's not easy. And people don't see the sweat and tears that you put into your brand. Like when you said you were, you were awake at 3 and at work, but then you were leaving at midnight. That's a mad cycle for even your body to take.
Correct.
And it puts a
Correct.
toll on you. One of my questions that I would like to ask you is, what is the best advice, Natalie, that you have received? And I'm sure there's different times in your life where people have told you things that you remember, regardless if it's something of criticism, but the criticism, I always say it's not what you say, it's how you say it to someone that implements within them and how they take it. So from me to you, I would like to ask, what is the best advice that you have received that has helped you in your life?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I actually would say that, okay, it's pretty easy. My best friend, Sarah,
Yeah.
she's told me just don't get too emotional over the deals
Yes.
and take
I've
the
learned that.
emotions out of it. And I'm an empath and I'm a very emotionally driven person. I think anyone who knows me will tell you that. I'm Italian and Venezuelan. So I feel things on a very intense level. But she was telling me that and giving me that advice after she saw how I responded to something someone said. And she's like, you're going to spend all this energy. Um, you're going to spend all this energy just trying to spin your wheels in your head and ruminate about what they said and how it made you feel and what the truth is and what your identity is with it. But business just isn't super emotional. And she was just like, you got to be able to make decisions quickly. You got to be able to move through your
Yes.
day. And you got to be able to just kind of let the little things go and not be so caught up in how you feel all the time. Yes, there is a time for where feelings matter. But I think as women, unfortunately, we as women need to get better to catch up to the men at not getting so type A and overly emotional and exhausting ourselves over everything. We've got to be able to pull it back and say, you know what? All right, that person said no. They don't want to work with me. I'm moving on. And now when I get a no on a deal, that's exactly my response. When I get a employee who quits, I don't mean this in a negative way. I want to take their feedback. I want to hear it. I want to know how to improve. But
Yeah.
also, moving on. Like, I'm not going to sit here and ruminate over why that person quit and why would they leave me and treachery. And, I'm just like, I see people doing this all the time as entrepreneurs. They over obsess about the little things and it stops them from being agile and building a successful business. Same thing with putting yourself out there on social media. You got to do it today. You can't be a founder that's just behind a wall. If you want to do that, that's fine. You'll just be less successful. I see
Yeah.
people overthink every single piece of content that they should put out and stress about it. And at this point, I think it's just sometimes don't let your feelings cloud your ability to do business and to move quickly.
Yes.
It doesn't mean be ruthless. It means take some of the emotions out of the decision making.
See, I love that. But my next question kind of tallies into it in a certain way. The
Yeah.
one thing that people like to do is judge. This word judgment. A lot of
Yeah.
people like to judge us. Like we said, even before we started recording, people like to judge you based on who you are, what you do, how much money you have, your title. If I were Natalie, if I was to take away the word judgment out of the dictionary, do you believe that you would have done or are doing anything different?
Man, that's such a powerful question. So if you took away my title and took away what people say I do,
And I took away
what would be
judgment as well. And I took away judgment out of the dictionary as well. And I said, Natalie, there is no judgment. You can do whatever you want whenever you want. You don't need to look in the mirror and see yourself as this person that's not loved. You don't need to you don't need to live up to people's expectations apart from the
yeah,
expectations of yourself. What
yeah,
would you do differently knowing that judgment is not there?
man. I don't know that I would do I don't know that I would do much differently, to be honest with you.
That's fair enough.
Um, I mean, I think about my fiance and why I love him, and it's for his heart, not for the way he looks, not for what he makes. It's for his heart of gold, right? I mean, truly. I think about the way that I spend my time and the way that I the way that I share and sell what we do at Oh Hello is valuable. And if somebody was not judging me, I still would do this work. I would still help companies. I would still want to build brands. So I think what your question relates to me is that I don't think there's anything about my life that I would drastically change. Um, for women, I think there is a pressure to be thin, to be fit, to be skinny, to be a certain body size.
Yeah.
I can say if there wasn't judgment, I probably would, let myself eat a few more pastries every week and maybe not worry so much about the bottom
Yeah.
line on the scale. I think I can get very caught up in showing people that I do work out, that I am disciplined, that I am fit. And if there wasn't judgment, that's probably the only thing that I can say that I would probably change is allowing myself maybe a little more freedom and flexibility to enjoy and indulge, knowing that even if the outcome is, an extra 15 to 25 pounds, people still love me. And I think I've always struggled with that. I think a lot of women do.
Yeah. I think a lot of women do look at themselves and think there's something wrong with. I have loads of friends who always tell me, Savia, I need to lose weight, but food tastes so good. It's just,
Yes.
but I have that, even having a partner who is a chef, they always say the same thing, so it just depends on you
Yes.
and just loving yourself that little bit more. One of my favorite questions, which I often do myself, I ask myself this question all the time, is when was the last time you felt totally at peace with yourself?
I have to close my eyes and think about that. It's probably this morning. My
That's nice.
fiance does this thing where he wakes up at 5:30. I don't wake up till 7, but he always snuggles me for like 10 minutes. And then after he gets out of bed, he'd probably be embarrassed I share this, but I think it's fine.
I think it's
He just
cute.
holds me and it's like the most loving snuggling ever. But then when he gets out of bed, we make a joke. He puts a wall of pillows so I can feel like it's still him.
Yeah.
So it's a complete wall of pillows, and the wall of pillows is like, our 3 body pillows. And then he'll call me and check on me later in the morning and be like, "How was the wall? Did it work for you? Did I assemble it
Aw.
properly?" It's our little joke. It's an inside joke, and every couple has these weird things you do for each
Yep.
other that just show
Yep.
you love each other, right? And he knows that I love, being snuggled up with blankets and pillows. The reason I say I'm totally at peace is because to wake up with someone in their arms who loves you, and also just to have a safe home like that, and I'm so grateful for the little things, our beautiful home, and to just think about like I'm totally at peace. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's just you pick the right person in life. I think they heal a lot of things that hurt. And I just remember thinking that this morning as we were just laying there, and like, I am totally at peace with everything in the world right now. And it doesn't mean that when I put my feet on the ground, I don't fall into chaos because I get wrapped up in email and work and who to call and what lead and how do we chase this deal. But I do think that I'm very lucky and grateful in my life that I have a great partner who does give me he evens me out. And it's not that I haven't felt totally at peace on my own, but I think it's a very clear sign that I have more of those moments with someone else than I did prior alone.
I think it's your yin and your yang, to be quite
Yes.
fair. When you
Yeah.
have that,
Yin
when
and
you
yang.
have that in your life, you know that no matter how much chaos that you have that comes your way, when that person enters the room, it's like everything fades away. It's like it goes into
Yeah.
a mist, and
Yeah.
it just fades away, and then you just exhale in a way that you haven't done before. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things, and it's priceless. There is no money in the world that can buy that type of memory or that type of comfort or that type of feeling that you have in your life when you get that. That's
Yeah,
how I
I
feel
couldn't
towards it.
agree more. Could not agree more.
Definitely.
That's exactly what it is. And yeah, so I'm marrying the love of my life this summer, and I'm very grateful that I found him. And I also know that we won't always have these moments. We might have 2 kids running around in 10 years, and
I
you're
love
like,
that.
you're. But that's the beauty of it. It's so precious right now to me because you never know what the future holds.
That is
So
true. One thing I've learned in life is that they say that we always evolve every 7 years. So our first 7 years will predict our next 7 years, and being an empath, you would definitely know this. So
Yes.
it impacts you every 7 years, but the change is a good change. And one of the things about having a partner is you change with them, not without them or alone. You change
With
beside them,
them.
with them. There is a massive difference. One of the questions that I do want to ask you, Natalie, is we all have a different definition of what success means to us. Some people feel like success could just mean waking up in the morning. Some people could be fighting cancer, passing the driving test, just waking up and breathing air. To you, Natalie, what does success mean to you in your own way?
Success to me just means that I'm able to choose what I want to do with my time.
I like
Truly.
that. It's simple,
That's
but
it.
it's nice.
It's just, can I get up? I'm working at this beautiful cafe today. Can I get up? Can I choose to work at the space that I want to work? Can I hop on it? I don't like doing things where I try to limit the amount of boundaries and confinements that I feel that I have. So,
Yeah,
like, even for this podcast, if you're like, hey, I want to do this podcast, but you have to do it in person and you'd have to fly down here, which some people ask. And, I like to have flexibility in my life. And so I'm a maximum optimizer. I have the arrangement quality from the Gallup Strengths.
I like
So
that.
I like I want to be spinning 10 different plates and I want to have the flexibility to spin them however I want. So I want to be here at my favorite cafe, having my cup of coffee, talking with you, doing a podcast, then jumping into a sales meeting. And then,
I
and,
love that.
and I don't flexibility to spend the time the way that I would like to create the maximum amount of purpose in my life is what success is. That's how I define success.
Natalie, if I said to you, I'm going to strip away all your titles. So I'm going to strip away, you're a business owner. I'm going to strip away entrepreneur. I'm going to take away all your money. I'm going to take away all your family. I'm going to take everything away from you. What is the one thing you would fight back for?
Like one title.
One thing you would fight back for. Out of
Oh
everything
man.
I've just taken away from you, family, money, house, everything. I've taken everything away from you. What is the one thing that you would fight back for?
My creativity, artistry, the ability to create something. I mean, I could be homeless living underneath a park bench, but if I'm creating something every day that has value in the world, I think I'm happy.
Yep. I definitely feel that one. So I've only got two more for you, Natalie. My
Yeah.
second to last question is, we have this, well, every time I have this conversation with people, it's about legacy. Now, some people believe that legacy is when you pass away and you leave something behind for people to remember you by. But I have this other kind of creative way of understanding what legacy means. To me, legacy is an everyday occurrence. What you say to people, how you make them feel, and how they carry that information with them and pass it on to someone else throughout their life. What does legacy mean to you, and how do you feel you carry it onwards?
This is a tough question for me to answer because as an Italian, I grapple with this all the time. But I feel legacy is what values do you instill in the people around you that they live by and are proud of?
Yes.
Because if they're proud of them, they'll live by them. So like
Yes.
I think about my relationship with my fiance right now and how we're preparing our next season of our lives to get married, to have a family. I mean, that's something very important to us. We talk about legacy all the time. We talk about building a healthy home, building healthy habits. The legacy of our family is going to be one where wellness is deeply rooted in our family. And legacy for us is how do we create these values that we're continuing through rituals and routines to pass along to our children, to our children who are going to pass them on to our children's children. So you can create legacy while you're alive. There's a large overcom in our cafe talking about the luminarium time that's going to close.
I love that.
So funny. I'm like, all right, I've never heard that, and I've been working here once a week for a while. So, anyways, of course, it's during a podcast. So really, what I think is, I'm going to flip the question back, because I do think legacy is, what do you believe is legacy? But I think it's the demonstration is where legacy is seen. Like, if you can watch how a family operates and how their kids, how the parents to the kids to their friends, legacy is an intangible that is demonstrated by the values that you pass along, and how those values are demonstrated as an action. And so for me, like, that's the legacy I want to leave every day with the people I love. And it's not easy to do. I mean, we all have family dynamics and trauma and things we're working through.
Yes.
So you have to practice it. It's a practice. Creating legacy is a daily practice.
You made me want to ask you one more, and I'm going to ask you because it's in my head, Natalie.
Yeah.
Forgiveness, I find, is a key to a lot of things in life. Has there been a moment where you felt that you couldn't forgive, but you still did in order to help yourself heal? And how has that helped you?
Well, I think with my mom, for sure. I mean, my mother did the best that she could do. And there were a lot of times in my childhood that were hectic and chaotic and not, I mean, I look at some of my peers and the stories they tell me about their kid, their mom picking them up from school at 3 o'clock every single day, and I'm like, I don't think I got picked up from school like ever on time, or if I was picked up from school at all. Like, sometimes I didn't even have the right person who was supposed to be there. And the reason I share that is because my mom wasn't doing it because she's, trying to hurt me. She was doing the best she could. She was overwhelmed with work. She would forget things. She, had her own mental health stuff going on. And so I had to choose in my late 20s to forgive her
Yeah.
for making those mistakes, and not even to forgive, but to own the fact that who would I be? I would not be this resilient, hardworking
Very
individual
true.
now if I got
Yep.
picked up from school on time. Like, I just wouldn't, because I had to figure out how to take the bus home or how to catch a
Yep.
ride with a friend. Do you know what I mean? And so, all of that to say, if I, at this point in my life, were to look back, my mother did me a favor by building me into a character driven, resilient entrepreneur by not giving me anything, by not, giving me everything, nothing was handed to me. And so that's how you forgive. You forgive by finding the good. And I find the good in the fact that there were some things she did really well. There was a lot that was really frustrating, but she wasn't doing it intentionally. She wasn't doing it on purpose. And it built who I am today.
Yes.
It built who I am today. And that's how you forgive, in my opinion, is by turning your sadness or your hardships, you flip it on its head and you turn it into the successes and into the stories of how you created something wonderful out of bad. And I think people just wallow in pity and victimhood. And I understand we all have trauma, but you've got to move on and figure out how to understand how it's made you the person you are today and be proud of it.
You know what? I think that's a beautiful way to actually end the podcast. So my last question for you, Natalie, is I would love for people to know more about you. And even before I say thank you, I would love for people to know where they can find you, where they can understand more about you and just what you do. Where can we find you?
Thank you. So Instagram is great. I check my DMs daily at Natalie Micale. It's just my name. Find me on LinkedIn if you want to professionally connect on branding or marketing or content, at my name, Natalie Micale. I try to make things easy. So branding around my name is the easiest way to do that.
See, I love that. And Natalie, this is where I say to you, thank you so much for, first of all, asking me how I am. Number 2, for coming on the podcast and just having a conversation with me before we began. But
Thank you,
lastly,
friend.
for sharing who you are as a person, the content of yourself, and also helping people to find out how they can build themselves and know that no matter what trauma you go through, there is a way to heal. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Savia. I loved this. I appreciate you. And thanks for doing the great work of telling people stories.
You're more than welcome. And guys, this is where I say to you, thank you so much for listening to the Us People podcast. And please remember, you can subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, or any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and any other platform that you choose to. And this is the most important part that I'll say to you is, guys, thank you again for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another. Take care.
Society has made me want to validate me. TikTok. Strike a post on Instagram. Fight the world on a Twitter feed. Link a thing on Snapchat. Why we dance on TikTok? Strike a post.
Thank you, Savia. That was wonderful. You're great at what you do.
Humbled, and you're great at telling a story. I understand why you do what you do.
Inside me, but the social media's corrupting me from being who I am every day. Different possibilities within inside me. We fight our war with ourselves. Our mental health is silencing us from our heart. Social media is taking our time from connecting with each other soul to soul. Why we dance on TikTok? Strike a post on Instagram. Fight the world on a Twitter feed. Link a thing on Snapchat. Why we dance on TikTok? Strike a post on Instagram. Fight the world on a Twitter feed. Link a thing on Snapchat. Why we dance on TikTok? 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 It's taking our time. Why we dance on TikTok? Each other soul to soul. Why we dance on TikTok? Strike a post on Instagram. Fight the world on a